make that work. Before we see any of the bits and pieces and extracts from the Hard Day's Night DVD, just a little bit of history. We would not be able to see, and we would not even have the interest in seeing, A Hard Day's Night, were it not for several people, obviously, because film is a collaborative art, but two really essential people who sometimes get a little forgotten in all the hubbub. The first is Brian Epstein. And the minute the Beatles started to become successful with the combination of their talent and Brian's incredibly hard work and promotional flair, the thought had been, oh well, you know, at some point maybe we should get involved and do a film. Having pop music stars make a film was not unusual, was not unheard of. It had been happening since the 30s. Popular artists of the 30s made films, 40s, 50s. And of course Elvis, from the earliest days, he'd been making films, certainly 2 or 3 films at the beginning, including Jailhouse Rock, had been very good films. But even by 1963, it was fairly clear that Elvis was on the road to doing the safe, easy commercial choices that his manager was making for him. In other words, Elvis was not stretching himself, and Elvis's films were no match to what he was doing musically, or had been doing musically. And in Britain, we had the same equivalent. We had singers such as Tommy Steele, another singer called Cliff Richard, you'll heard of, very popular. But the movies they were doing were just kind of safe, enjoyable things, the things that the film industry would call a vehicle, i.e. the film industry took a very patronising attitude towards us, the fans. They said, they like the Beatles, they'll just go and see anything. If we put the Beatles on celluloid, the fans will come, they'll pay their $2 or whatever it was in those days, and we'll get their money, and the kids don't care enough. They don't care. As long as they see their stars on the big screen and have a few songs, they don't care. And that was the prevalent attitude in the film industry and, sad to say, in the music industry. Brian Epstein was cut from a different type of cloth than that. He cherished and loved the Beatles so much, he did not want to see them make a standard issue teen music movie. So when there were approaches to the Beatles, they turned down several film approaches. And there was, right through 1963, as the Beatles exploded in England, there was, oh, why don't you do this and why don't you do that film? And the Beatles and Brian discussed, said, no, let's do this right. We need to do in film that we're doing in music. Remember this, when it came to singles, the Beatles refused even the first recommendation from George Martin, do a cover song, do How Do You Do It, do somebody else's song. The Beatles were insistent that their singles should always be original compositions. And it had to be like that with film too. Enter Walter Shenson. Walter, bless him, did not originate the idea for the Beatles film. It was somebody in United Artists, and you'll hear the story in a moment, somebody in United Artists in London who contacted United Artists, being a big movie company, could see how successful the Beatles were being in England, contacted his boss in America and said, hey, why don't we do a film? And the people in America, you'll hear, said yes. They went back to the guy in England and said, well, find a producer for us. And they picked Walter Shenson. And they could not have picked somebody better for us Beatle fans, because Walter Shenson was an American living in London, but he had a care and passion for comedy, and also a care and passion to not do the obvious, easy thing. Because of course, if you decide to make a film with the Beatles, they know that we, the fans, are going to go. And the easiest thing in the world to have done would be said, let's pick a director that does sitcoms on TV, and let's get a writer who just does sitcoms. After all, the fans won't notice. Let's just do any old rubbish. Just something that's a pleasant thing. But Walter, like Brian Epstein, saw the potential of doing something special. And rather than go and hire just any old sitcom director or any old writer, he got in touch with Richard Lester, who's a remarkable director, who he just worked with. And, well, that's all part of the history. You'll see some of that now, and more of it on the DVD. But it's